If you're wondering what this is a microphone. I'm not gonna move it. I'm gonna leave it there. Hello and welcome to a Loyalty Cup lightning round where we deep dive into a movie because we think it deserves a little bit more attention because it needs more love. Let's jump in. Let's do it. In Burning, an awkward and shy Jung-soo reconnects with the manic pixie Hae-mi, someone he knew from his past, and Jung-soo kind of pathetically falls right in love with Hae-mi after just a single sexual encounter. But this whole thing turns into this super cringy, isosceles love triangle when the rich and handsome Ben comes into the picture to bring about his mystery and destruction. This film is won by Lee Chang Dong, somebody who I was unfamiliar with, but this thing got a lot of attention in Cannes, and now after seeing it, I'm eager to correct that. I want to see all his movies, because this one was beautiful. It's based on a 1992 short story by Haruki Murakami, and it's got very little to do with it, honestly. The thing that you see on screen is very different from the short story, though I highly recommend the short story. It was very beautiful. On its face, this is a story about a sort of desperate longing and loneliness that gets thrown into a really intense jealousy, and that's kind of what you ride with for a lot of this movie. And it's further intensified by what ends up being a really unremarkable main character. This protagonist becomes more and more unlikable as the movie goes on. So what's this movie really about? From what I can put together, this film paints a picture of a first world that's living through this huge division of wealth and lifestyles of the people living in it. And it's at the same time that our culture is kind of pushing us to be more and more isolated. Seeing someone else flex the money they have or the connects and capabilities that they're afforded can make others withdraw right back into the security of their iPhone screens. Now, Ben doesn't necessarily see this divide because it's the water that he swims in, right? And when he's questioned on it, he says, there's no right or wrong, just the morals of nature. This movie strongly reinforces this idea, so let's talk about it. Let's jump in. Our main character is already becoming increasingly more lame as we get through this movie, but we're hammered with this intense and concentrated sort of inferiority when we're met with Ben and his money and his car and his charm and his face. He's got a nice face. I like his face. This inferiority that we're met with is kind of the main connection point in this movie. If you're not clinging on to that or empathizing with that, you're in for what is a pretty quiet and slow ride because it meditates on this potent jealousy, this just infuriating sort of When Hae-mi disappears, it heavily suggests that Ben took care of her, that he did it. That in his whole greenhouse escapade, he might have just kind of thrown her into the mix. And if the murder wasn't enough, it's the brashness in which he operates. It's business as usual for him. It's like nothing's happened. It's something he does every couple months. And he's so sure of his superiority over people like Jung-soo and Hae-mi that he's not really concerned about any sort of repercussion. He'll never show a hint of stress because he's convinced that these people are just kindling for what is his burning desire for something more, or really just to be entertained or to have fun. So you have this suggested murder, and as the pieces slowly start to kind of almost fit together, we get blindsided by what is a pretty concrete and actual murder. Like, we see it happen on screen. And what we're seeing isn't a closed case retribution for the acts of what Ben did, because the acts are suggested. We don't actually know what he did. We feel like we're sure and we're giving strong hints, but do we actually know? The watch could have been just left there, the cat could be a different cat, and we never actually put our eyes on the greenhouse that he supposedly was running around burning. This is all expertly and wonderfully suggested destruction. So what we're watching in that final act is the thrashings of somebody who's buckled under the weight of all this, the inability to handle or understand why things are the way that they are. Jung-soo has a burst of anger, one that he might have inherited from his father. And it comes from crumbling under his circumstances. How unfair is the world for him when he has almost nothing and still what he does have is taken away from him? Why is it that someone like Ben, whether he murdered Hae-mi or not, can come in, take it, and kind of treat Hae-mi like she's nothing, like she's worthless? Both of these characters are without purpose or meaning, and when they're running around aimless, they fall on opposing sides, and what ends up happening is a body and a bloody pair of trousers burning up in a really nice Porsche. So yeah, I really like this movie. I really think it works for a few reasons. One, the direction is beautiful. There's this great moment where you're in the sex scene and you see this light that had been aforementioned, and you see it for just a moment. It's fleeting, just like the relationship between our main characters. The performances are beautiful. I already liked Steven Yeun, but I didn't know that I would love his performance in the way that he does it here. And the other two actors are just, it's engrossing. You really get sucked into it all, and the direction kind of just lingers on them and really lets you take it all in. But finally, it's the plotting. The plotting is what makes this movie super distinct. It's not like other movies. It's one that really rewards patience. And it's also going to be the very thing that turns people off. You go into it thinking it's one thing, kind of starts off with this sort of love triangle drama, and it turns into kind of almost a thriller, and it ends up being just kind of a really beautiful portrait of how despair can go a bad way. I like how the puzzle pieces didn't fit quite neatly all together, and it made the whole thing feel more mysterious and ethereal and beguiling. I'm gonna use the word beguiling. I like the word beguiling. This movie isn't going to be for everybody. Some people are going to watch it and they're going to feel like not a lot is happening, and you know what? You wouldn't be completely wrong. If you're looking for a movie where the lines are kind of super thick and black and end with really strong connecting points, then this isn't going to be the movie for you. The movie kind of blue balls the audience, and it kind of leaves the mystery unresolved. And even after a large investment, the payoff isn't exactly what you think it's going to be. In fact, you can say that the only person that gets any sort of relief or resolve is the Jung-soo character in a really dark way. Still, the movie is worth the watch because of that journey. So Jaime in this movie talks about the big hunger being something that drives us for fulfillment or for joy or for meaning. This movie kind of demonstrates what can happen when you feel alone in that struggle, and it simmers and simmers until it boils over into something way darker. It's really rad to see. I really enjoyed it, and I'm glad that I had a chance to highlight this movie here on this channel. I hope you guys are feeding your big hunger, and if you like what we're doing, if you love movies the way that we do, then please clack that subscribe button right there. I wish you and yours the very best. Good night.